Let's go live to Istanbul to speak to John Kavulich, Senior Editor for Outcome Modelling Analysis at Issue Insight. John, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. We just heard Donald Trump there. He was on board Air Force One earlier, and he said nothing's going to happen until Putin and I get together. Has Donald Trump poured cold water on today's talks, achieving anything?
He's probably poured some water, but believe me, in the last 24 hours, there's enough water being poured to drown everyone. In diplomatic parlance, the last 24 hours has been a disaster for Russian government, for the Ukrainian government, for the US government, and for any government that wants to see the war end. Everything that you could make a list about going wrong has gone wrong. Every misstatement, every unhelpful statement that you would write it in a memo saying, make certain you don't do this, everyone has stepped up and done exactly that.
John, I just want to know exactly what you think has gone wrong and why it's been so disastrous up to this point.
Let me tee up a little bit of as briefly as I can, the history of this. President Putin said, I would like to have direct talks with the Ukrainian government without preconditions on Thursday, May 15th. He said, I will talk to President Erdogan of Turkey to make sure it's okay. President Trump immediately says, Ukraine should go. President Zelenskyy then says, I'll go and can meet with Putin. And then President Zelenskyy says, I'm only going if Putin is going. And then he says, well, I'm not certain if I'll go if Putin doesn't go, but I'm going to go to Ankara and I'll meet with President Erdogan. He goes to Ankara, meets with President Erdogan, and that isn't sure that he'll come to Istanbul, nor that his delegation will come to Istanbul. The Russians, meanwhile, arrive in Istanbul, and they're basically saying in the afternoon, where are the Ukrainians? Then President Zelenskyy, having arrived in Istanbul, says, well, I'm now going to send a delegation. It'll be led by the defense minister, but I'm still not going because the level of officials from Russia isn't high enough to warrant my participation. Then we have a sort of where is he, which is Andrei Yermak, who's the head of the office of the president. He's basically been the lead person during the Biden-Harris administration and during the Trump-Vance administration, and he has led some of the discussions. He was in Saudi Arabia for the first trilateral discussion, and he's also known that he's wearing a suit recently as opposed to wearing the olive military fatigues. Why isn't he leading this Ukrainian delegation? So we're here now where President Putin said Thursday, the 15th of May. He didn't say Friday, the 16th of May. He didn't say either or. He said today. So we're uncertain whether the discussions, negotiations are going to happen. Are they going to happen tomorrow? Are they going to go for a while tomorrow? What's going to happen? So this has just been teed up disastrously.
So, John, what's the answer here? Is it time for Donald Trump to step up and get involved? Is it time for Donald Trump to possibly come to Turkey tomorrow? Is this now what the US have to do to push Putin and Zelenskyy to meet?
I don't think it's necessary or it's the right time. If President Putin was planning to arrive in Istanbul to meet face-to-face with President Zelenskyy, we would have seen the mechanics of a head of state movement, and also you would have heard about the discussions with President Trump's team to make that happen. You would have seen basically there's a tremendous amount of mechanics that move a President Putin or a President Trump, and that's logistically with military aircraft, with security forces, with just everything starts moving, and you see it. You can tell something's going to happen. So we never saw that. Unfortunately, how this should have happened or how this should have gone down was regardless of President Putin's position on attending. President Zelenskyy should have said, I'm going. You come, you don't come. I'm going. I'm going to lead the delegation because I want to try to negotiate a ceasefire. I want prisoner exchanges. So there are other issues simply besides negotiating a peace agreement, negotiating an end to the war. And there are these steps, and they're important for Ukraine. So that's what he should have done, as opposed to he let his ego get in the way and is now, well, the Russians are sending this level, I'm sending this level. There's a reality here. Russia attacked Ukraine. Russia has the bigger army. Russia's inflicting more damage on Ukraine. Ukraine is the victim. Ukraine is trying to get the aggressor to stop. Therefore, you pull out every tool you have. And President Zelenskyy himself is a good tool. He should have been leading. He should have said, I'm going to sit there. I'm not going to like it, but I'm going to try to make something happen, because you never know the result of the dialogue behind closed doors, nuances, somebody saying, well, let us take that back. You never know. And finally, someone's title is not always indicative of who they are. When President Zelenskyy says that President Putin makes the decisions, he's right. President Zelenskyy makes the decisions. President Trump makes the decisions, but not in vacuums. They have people around them. And sometimes the most important people don't have the most important titles. And that's what was missing today, an appreciation of that.
So, John, I know that you're in Istanbul currently, where the delegations are meeting. But my question to you now, after what you said, Zelenskyy almost let his ego get in the way. Putin hasn't arrived. So what is actually next for these peace talks after today? Is there any hope going forward?
Well, it goes to the question that I didn't answer, which was about President Trump and President Putin getting together. You know, President Trump said, I need to sit with Vladimir Putin and make this happen. Now, that sort of puts him back into the bilateral where he and his team during the last weeks have been trying to extract themselves, saying, you know, we're going to step aside if Russia and Ukraine don't talk, if they don't make something happen. We've given it all that we can. We're going to step back. If they want to kill each other, they're going to kill each other. But we're sort of done. And I think President Trump is capable of walking away, but he doesn't want to. And I think that what he's seeing is President Zelenskyy may not have enough to give President Putin now to get President Putin to agree to what President Trump really wants, which is the 30-day ceasefire. Because once he can get that ceasefire, from his perspective, he's finished. Because every time he's talked about, since he's became president, talked about what he can do, it's about the ceasefire. Then we use that time to try to build mechanisms to then discuss the process for a peace treaty. But stop killing each other while you're talking. Once he gets that set, I think he's going to find it very easy to say, guys, I fulfilled my role. The killing has stopped. Nobel Prize folks, you know, take that into consideration. But now it's up to you. And if you start killing each other again, I can wash my hands of it, because what else can I do? This is between you two.
John Kavulich, a senior editor for outcome modelling analysis at Issue Insight. It's always brilliant to have you on the show. I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.